Commander Vel Oris stood before the observation window with all four of his arms pressed tightly against his chest. His pale blue skin had turned almost white. The sensors did not lie. 47 ships moved through the darkness of space toward Sanctuary 7, and every single one of them carried death. The Vorn had come. Behind Oris, his crew worked in silence. They knew the numbers just as well as he did. Sanctuary 7 was a medical station, built to heal and protect, not to fight. 200 soldiers defended it. Most of them were Rilani like himself, tall and thin, with bones that could snap under too much pressure. They were a peaceful species. They had never needed to be anything else. But the Vorn did not care about peace. Oris turned away from the window and walked to the communication console. His long fingers trembled as he opened a channel to Coalition High Command. The message he sent was simple and desperate. "This is Commander Vel Oris of Sanctuary 7. We have 47 Vorn warships approaching our position. Our station holds 12,000 civilians, mostly refugees. We have 200 defense personnel with light weapons. We cannot survive this attack alone. Please, send reinforcements. Any available units, please." He closed the channel and waited. Around him, the station continued its work. 12,000 souls lived within these walls. Families, children, the old and the sick. They had fled the Vorn expansion and come here seeking safety. Now the enemy had followed them. The response came faster than Oris expected. He read it twice to make sure he understood. Commander Oris. All major coalition fleets are currently engaged in the Thandric sector. We cannot redirect military assets to your position. However, one unit is within range and has been notified of your situation. Species classification: Terran. Planet of origin: Earth. Unit designation: Sigma 9. They will arrive within 3 hours. Oris stared at the message. Terran. He had never heard that word before. Earth. He did not know that planet. He pulled up the Coalition database and searched for information. The file was small. Most species had thousands of entries about their history, culture, and biology. This species had almost nothing. Just basic facts, and one tag that made Oris feel cold inside. Death World class origin. Handle with caution. He did not understand. He turned to find someone who might explain, and his eyes found Elder Comey sitting quietly in the corner of the command center. The old Bralith had gray skin and eyes that had seen many centuries. Comey belonged to the diplomatic caste of his people. He knew more about the galaxy than anyone on this station. Elder, Oris said. What is a death world? Eld. Comey's ancient face shifted. Something moved behind his eyes that Oris could not read. Where did you hear that word? The elder asked. Reinforcements are coming. They are called Terrans, from a planet named Earth. The file says, Death World class origin. Comey was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft and serious. Most species in our coalition come from worlds that are gentle. Worlds where life is easy. Where the gravity is light, the atmosphere is stable, and the food is plentiful. These are the conditions that allow intelligence to develop. We evolved to think because we did not need to spend all our energy surviving. Oris nodded. This was basic knowledge. All civilized species came from such worlds. Earth is different, Comey continued. Earth is a world that tries to kill everything living on it. The gravity is crushing. The weather changes from extreme heat to extreme cold. The atmosphere carries poison and disease. The planet has creatures that hunt and kill for food. Everything on Earth fights to survive every single day. Oris felt his stomach twist. Then how could any intelligent species evolve there? They did not evolve despite these conditions. They evolved because of them. Comey's voice dropped to nearly a whisper. The Terrans are not survivors. They are the apex predators of a world designed to create monsters. They did not just live on Earth. They conquered it. They killed anything that threatened them until nothing was left that could challenge them. Lieutenant Thessa, a young Rilani officer, stepped closer. Her large eyes were wide with fear. "Are you saying these reinforcements are dangerous?" "I am saying," Comey replied, "that I have studied 147 spacefaring species in my lifetime. I have read about the Vorn and their endless hunger. I have seen the Kralith and their warrior codes, but I have never found anything in any record that frightens me as much as the Terrans frighten me." Oris looked back at the sensor display. The Vorn ships were growing closer. "We do not have a choice. They are all we have." The next 3 hours passed slowly. Oris used the time to prepare his soldiers and move the civilians to the inner sections of the station. He told them that help was coming, but he did not tell them what kind of help. He was not sure what to say. When the Terran ship finally appeared on sensors, Oris felt his heart sink. It was small. So small. A single vessel that could fit inside the landing bay of a Vorn carrier. It was old and battered, covered in marks and scratches that told of many battles. Strange symbols were painted on its hull. "One ship," Thessa said. "They sent one ship." The communication channel opened. A voice came through, speaking Coalition Standard with a strange accent. The voice was calm. Too calm for someone flying toward 47 enemy warships. "Sanctuary 7. This is Captain Kim Do-hyun of Deathworld Unit Sigma 9. We have received your distress call and reviewed your tactical situation. We are requesting permission to dock." Oris opened his mouth to respond, but Thessa spoke first. "How many soldiers are you bringing? How many ships are behind you?" There was a short pause. Then the voice answered, and something in its tone made Oris's blood run cold. "There are 5 of us. No additional ships are coming." 5. Against 47 Vorn warships. Against thousands upon thousands of Vorn drones. 5 soldiers from a world that created monsters. "Captain," Oris said, struggling to keep his voice steady. "With respect, how can 5 soldiers make any difference here? We face overwhelming odds. This is a situation that requires an army." The response came with something unexpected. Oris could hear a sound in the background. Other Terrans were laughing. They were laughing at the numbers. Captain Do-hyun spoke again, and this time there was something new in his voice. It was not fear. It was not worry. It was something Oris had never heard in his entire life. It was excitement. "Commander, I understand your concern. But my team has handled worse. We once held a position against 2,000 enemies with only 3 soldiers. This situation is actually an improvement." Elder Comey had risen from his seat. His old eyes were fixed on the communication speaker, with an expression that mixed terror and fascination. "You should know," Do-hyun continued, "that humans do not measure threats by numbers. We measure them by whether we are still standing at the end. And I promise you this, Commander, when this is over, we will still be standing." The channel went silent. The small, battered ship grew larger on the display as it approached the docking bay. Oris looked at Comey. "What have I invited onto my station?" The elder did not answer immediately. He watched the approaching ship with ancient, knowing eyes. "You have invited death," Comey finally said. "But for once, it is not coming for us." The docking clamps engaged. The ship was locked in place. Deep within Sanctuary 7, a door opened, and 5 humans stepped out to meet the galaxy. They asked for reinforcements. What they received were Deathworlders, and nothing would ever be the same. The docking bay of Sanctuary 7 was filled with Coalition soldiers when the human ship opened its doors. 20 Rilani stood in formation, their light plasma weapons held nervously in their thin hands. They were not sure what to expect. Elder Comey's words had spread through the station like fire. Deathworlders were coming. The door hissed open, and the first human stepped out. Commander Oris felt something strange move through his body. It was not quite fear. It was something deeper, something his ancestors had felt millions of years ago when predators walked the plains of his homeworld. The human was shorter than a Rilani. Much shorter. But there was something wrong about the way he moved. Every step was smooth and controlled. His eyes moved constantly, scanning the room, tracking every person, every shadow, every possible threat. He moved like a hunter. "I am Captain Kim Do-hyun," the human said. His voice was deep and calm. "Thank you for allowing us to dock." 4 more humans followed him out of the ship. 2 males and 2 females. Though Oris had trouble telling them apart at first, they all had the same dense, compact bodies, the same watchful eyes, the same relaxed posture that somehow felt more dangerous than any battle stance. The second human was a female with sharp features and cold eyes. She carried a long weapon that Oris did not recognize. It was made of metal and had no visible energy source. "Sergeant Park Hannah," Do-hyun said, introducing her. "My second in command." Hannah nodded at the coalition soldiers. Her eyes lingered on their weapons for a moment. Something that might have been amusement crossed her face. The third human was a male with a friendly smile. He carried a bag marked with a red symbol that Oris learned later meant medical supplies. Corporal Lee Taemin, combat medic. The fourth was a young female with quiet eyes and steady hands. She carried several bags that seemed heavy. Private Yoon Nari, explosives expert. The last human was the largest of the group. He was not tall, but he was wide, built like a creature designed to break through walls. He carried a weapon so big that 2 Rilani could not have lifted it together. Private Cho Han-sol, heavy weapons. Oris stepped forward. His forearms remained pressed against his chest in the traditional Rilani gesture of peace. "Welcome to Sanctuary 7. I am Commander Vel Oris. I must admit, Captain, I was expecting more of you." Do-hyun smiled. It was a strange expression. Oris had seen smiles before on many species, but this one showed teeth. Human teeth were not like Rilani teeth. They were not flat and made for plants. They were sharp. They were made for tearing meat. Several coalition soldiers stepped back without realizing it. 5 is a good number, Do-hyun said. "Easy to coordinate. Hard to kill." Lieutenant Thessa moved closer to Oris and whispered, "Sir, they cannot be serious. 5 soldiers against the Vorn? This is suicide." She did not whisper quietly enough. Taemin, the medic, turned toward her with his friendly smile still in place. "We get that a lot," he said. "But do not worry. Humans are very hard to kill. I once broke my arm in 3 places during a mission. Bone came right through the skin. Very messy." He laughed, as if he was telling a funny story. "It healed in 6 weeks, came back stronger than before." Thessa's face went pale. Among Rilani, a broken bone was often fatal. Their bodies did not heal like that. "Your bones grow back stronger after breaking?" she asked. "Sometimes. Our bodies are strange like that. We adapt to damage." Taemin shrugged. "That is what happens when you evolve on a planet that is constantly trying to kill you." Oris led the humans to the command center. Along the way, they passed several groups of refugees. The civilians stared at the humans with wide eyes. The humans stared back. Nari, the explosives expert, smiled at a group of Bralith children. They hid behind their parents. In the command center, Oris showed the humans the tactical display. 47 Vorn ships. Thousands of drones. 6 hours until the shields failed. Do-hyun studied the display in silence. His face showed no emotion. He asked questions about the station's layout, the shield systems, the placement of airlocks. He asked about the refugees and where they were located. He asked about the Vorn themselves. "They are a hive mind species," Oris explained. "Each individual drone is controlled by a central intelligence called the Prime Alpha. They fight without fear because they do not have individual minds to feel fear. They do not stop until they are killed or until the Alpha calls them back." "Sounds familiar," Hannah said. "Remember the Kepler station incident? Same concept. Different bugs. We held that station for 16 hours, Hansel said. It was the first time the big man had spoken. His voice was like rocks grinding together. Oris looked at them with confusion. "You have fought enemies like this before?" "Humans have fought enemies like this for thousands of years," Do-hyun said. "On Earth, We had insects that formed massive colonies, with a single queen controlling millions of workers. We wiped them out when they became problems. We wiped out most things that became problems. He said it casually, like it was normal. Like exterminating entire species was just something humans did when they were bored. Taemin opened his medical bag and pulled out a small container. "Anyone want some coffee while we plan?" "What is coffee?" Thessa asked. "A drink from Earth, made from beans. It helps us stay awake and focused." A Rilani medic standing nearby scanned the container out of professional curiosity. She looked at the results. Then she looked at them again. Her hands started shaking. "This contains caffeine," she said. "That is a neurotoxin. It would stop a Rilani heart in minutes." Taemin nodded. "It is pretty mild for humans. We drink it every morning. Some people drink 5 or 6 cups a day." The Rilani medic sat down heavily. She looked like she might faint. Elder Komi had been watching quietly from his corner. Now he moved forward with slow, careful steps. "Captain Do-hyun," he said. "I have a question, if I may." "Of course, Elder. The Vorn are coming to kill everyone on this station. If your ship left now, you could escape easily. You have no duty to protect us. We are not your people. Why are you here?" Do-hyun considered the question. His eyes moved to his squad, then to the refugees visible through the command center windows, then back to the Elder. "Because you asked for help," he said simply. "That is enough. But you will probably die here." Something changed in Do-hyun's face. For just a moment, Oris saw something behind the captain's calm expression. It was not fear. It was something older and stranger, something that Oris did not have a word for. "Elder, humans have a saying, everyone dies eventually. What matters is what you do before then." Do-hyun turned back to the tactical display. "We choose to spend our deaths protecting people who need protecting. If we die here, we die doing something that matters. That is a good death." Hana checked her weapon. Nari began unpacking her explosives. Hansol lifted his massive gun and examined it with careful attention. Taemin finished his coffee and pulled out his medical supplies. They were going to fight. 5 of them, against thousands. And they were not afraid. They were not even worried. They were excited. The first Vorn assault pods appeared on sensors. They were beginning their approach. Do-hyun stood straight and addressed his team with a smile that showed all his predator teeth. "All right, everyone. Time to show them why nothing leaves Earth alive unless we allow it." The humans moved toward the exit with the smooth, coordinated motion of a wolf pack heading toward prey. Oris watched them go. "What have we done?" Thessa whispered. Elder Komi answered without looking away from the departing humans. "We invited monsters to fight monsters. Now we pray that our monsters are worse." The first explosions shook the station. The Vorn had arrived, and so had humanity. The first Vorn breach happened in Sector 7. 300 drones poured through the shattered hull like a black tide of claws and hunger. They were insectoid creatures, each one standing taller than a Rilani, covered in hard shells and equipped with natural blades that could cut through metal. Coalition soldiers formed a defensive line. Their plasma weapons fired bright beams of light that burned holes in Vorn carapace. But for every drone that fell, 5 more took its place. The soldiers were retreating step by step, and they knew what retreat meant. It meant death. The Vorn did not take prisoners. The Vorn consumed. Lieutenant Thessa stood at the front of the line, firing as fast as her weapon would allow. Her hands were shaking. Her hearts were beating so fast she thought they might burst. This was it. This was how she would die. On a medical station, eaten alive by monsters. Then she heard a sound that did not belong. It was not the hiss of plasma fire. It was not the clicking of Vorn claws. It was something else. Something rhythmic and thunderous. Something that shook the walls. The humans had arrived. Captain Do-hyun came around the corner first, moving faster than Thessa thought possible for a creature so dense. He raised his weapon, a thing made of metal that the Rilani did not understand. And he fired. The sound was incredible. It was an explosion of noise, over and over. so fast that individual shots blurred together into a constant roar. But the effect was even more incredible. The Vorn drones at the front of the swarm simply came apart. Their shells cracked and shattered, their bodies fell in pieces. Human weapons did not fire light. They fired metal. Small pieces of metal moving so fast that nothing could stop them. Sergeant Hana appeared next to Do-hyun. Her weapon was longer, and she moved it with slow, deliberate purpose. Every time it fired, a Vorn dropped dead. She never missed. Not once. Every shot found a gap in the armor, a joint, an eye. She killed with terrible precision. Corporal Taemin was somehow everywhere at once. He fired his weapon with one hand while pulling a wounded Rilani soldier to safety with the other. He was smiling. Actually smiling. Like this was fun. Like killing monsters and saving lives was the best thing that could happen to him on any given day. Private Nari moved along the walls with a bag of explosives hanging from her shoulder. She placed small devices at specific points, her eyes measuring distances and angles that no Rilani could calculate. Then she stepped back and pressed a button. The ceiling collapsed on 50 Vorn drones at once. The tunnel behind them was sealed. The swarm was cut in half. And then there was Hansol. The big human walked forward into the Vorn like he was walking through rain. His weapon was not a rifle. It was something else. Something that Thessa could only describe as an extinction device. When it fired, it did not make sound. It made thunder. Everything in front of it simply stopped existing. Hansol did not dodge. He did not take cover. He just walked forward, one step at a time. And the Vorn died around him like leaves in a fire. A drone lunged at him from the side. Its blade caught his arm and drew blood. Hansol looked at the wound like it was a minor inconvenience. Then, he grabbed the drone by its head and crushed it with his bare hands. His bare hands. The creature that could slice through metal was killed by human fingers. In less than 5 minutes, 300 Vorn were dead. The breach was sealed. The human weapons fell silent. Thessa stood in the middle of the corridor, surrounded by the bodies of aliens that had been tearing through her defensive line moments ago. Her plasma rifle was still raised. She had not fired a single shot since the humans arrived. "Everyone okay?" Taemin asked. He was already moving among the coalition soldiers, checking wounds, applying bandages. His smile had not faded. Do-hyun walked over to Commander Oris, who had come to observe the battle from a safe distance. The captain's uniform was splattered with Vorn blood. He did not seem to notice. "Sector 7 is secure," he reported. "We should expect them to try again in about 20 minutes. They will need to regroup and analyze what went wrong." Oris could not speak. He had seen battles before. He had seen death. But he had never seen anything like this. 5 creatures had destroyed 300 enemies in minutes, and they were not even breathing hard. "Captain," Oris finally managed, "you are wounded." Do-hyun looked down at his shoulder. There was a cut there, bleeding steadily. A Vorn blade had found its mark during the fighting. "Oh, this?" He reached up and touched the wound. He seemed annoyed, not hurt. "Taemin, can you put a bandage on this when you have a minute? And maybe some painkillers later." No rush. No rush. He had a blade wound that would have put a Rilani in the hospital for a week, and he was treating it like a minor inconvenience. "Sir, that needs treatment now," a Rilani medic said, stepping forward. "The blood loss alone. Humans have a lot of blood," Taemin interrupted cheerfully. "We can lose a quarter of it and still fight. It is a useful feature." The medic's mouth opened and closed without making sound. Far away, in a ship at the center of the Vorn fleet, something ancient was watching. The Vorn Prime Alpha had lived for 1,000 years. It had consumed hundreds of worlds. Its mind controlled millions of drones across dozens of star systems. It had never known defeat, until now. The Alpha watched through the eyes of its surviving drones as the impossible happened. Its creatures were being slaughtered by 5 small beings, 5 targets that moved wrong, that fought wrong, that did not behave like prey was supposed to behave. Prey ran, prey hid, prey died. These creatures advanced. These creatures smiled. These creatures killed. The Alpha searched its vast memory for anything similar. It found nothing. In 1,000 years of conquest, it had never encountered anything like these Terrans. A new feeling moved through its ancient mind. The Alpha did not recognize it at first. It had never felt anything like it. It took several minutes to find the right concept. Fear. The Vorn Prime Alpha was afraid. Back on Sanctuary 7, the humans were preparing for the next wave. Nari was setting more explosives. Hana was reloading her rifle with smooth, practiced motions. Hansel was checking his massive weapon for damage. Taemin had finished patching up Do-hyun's shoulder. The captain rolled his arm to test the bandage. "Good work, everyone," he said. That was a nice warm-up. Warm-up. They had just killed 300 enemies, and he called it a warm-up. Elder Komi approached the captain. The old Bralith's eyes were wide, with something that might have been wonder or terror. "I have a question," Komi said. "During the fight, you were injured. The blade went deep. Why did you not stop? Why did you not fall?" Do-hyun considered the question. He seemed genuinely puzzled, like he did not understand why anyone would ask. "Because there were enemies in front of me," he said. "And people to protect behind me. Pain is just information. You note it, and keep moving. But does it not hurt? Of course it hurts. But pain is not a reason to stop. Pain is just your body telling you that something is wrong. You fix it when you can, and you keep fighting until then." Do-hyun smiled. "On Earth, everything hurts. If we stopped every time something hurt, we would never accomplish anything." Komi was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "You are not soldiers. You are something else. Something older. We are human," Do-hyun said. "We are just doing what humans have always done. Surviving, protecting, fighting." He looked toward the corridor where more Vorn would soon appear. "It is what we were made for." The sensors began to flash. Another wave was coming. More drones. More death. The 5 humans moved to meet it. Thessa watched them go. She had spent her whole life being told that prey species like the Rilani could never match predator species in combat. She had believed that strength and violence were things to fear and avoid, but now she was starting to understand something new. The humans were not scary because they were violent. They were scary because they chose to be violent in defense of others. They had come across the stars to die for people they had never met, and they were smiling while they did it. The second wave hit harder than the first, and the humans held the line, because that was what humans did. By the 4th hour, the situation had changed. The Vorn had learned. They no longer attacked in single waves. They hit multiple points at once. 5 humans could not be everywhere. For every breach they sealed, 2 more opened elsewhere. Coalition soldiers started dying. Commander Oris stood in the command center, watching the damage reports scroll across his screen. Sector 4 was lost. Sector 9 was failing. The shields were at 20% and falling. The civilians huddled in the core of the station, listening to the sounds of battle grow closer. The humans were still fighting. They had split up, each taking a different sector, stretching themselves as thin as possible. But even monsters had limits. Do-hyun fought in Sector 6. He had run out of ammunition twice and had started using whatever weapons he could find. Rilani plasma rifles, Vorn blades taken from dead enemies. At one point, he killed 3 drones with a metal pipe ripped from the wall. Hana held Sector 2 alone. Her perfect accuracy had saved dozens of lives. But even she could not shoot fast enough. Coalition soldiers fell around her, and she could not protect them all. Taemin moved through the station like a ghost, appearing wherever wounds needed treating. He had stopped smiling, not because he was scared, but because he did not have time to smile. Every second he spent on one patient was a second another patient might die. Nari had run out of explosives. She was improvising now, building bombs from station components and Vorn technology. Her creations were ugly but effective. Entire corridors of enemies vanished in fire and thunder. Hansel was simply a wall. He stood in Sector 8 and let nothing pass. His body had taken more wounds than anyone could count. He should have been dead. He kept fighting, but it was not enough. Lieutenant Thessa crouched behind a barrier in Sector 3. Her plasma rifle clutched in shaking hands. The sounds of Vorn claws on metal grew closer. The soldiers beside her were dead or dying. She was alone. A drone appeared around the corner, then another, then 10 more. Thessa knew she was going to die. She accepted it. But something happened inside her that she did not expect. She got angry. Angry at the Vorn for coming here. Angry at the Coalition for not sending more help. Angry at herself for being afraid. And angry that she had spent her whole life believing that Prey could not fight back. The humans fought back. 5 of them against thousands. And they were still fighting. Thessa stood up. She raised her rifle. Her hands stopped shaking. "Come on then," she said to the advancing Vorn. Her voice was strange to her own ears. It sounded almost like a human voice. "Come and see what Rilani can do." She fired. Her shots were wild at first. She had never fought like this before. But she kept firing. She kept standing. A drone reached her barrier, and she slammed the butt of her rifle into its face. Another grabbed her arm, and she twisted away, firing point blank into its chest. She did not know how long she fought. It felt like hours. It was probably minutes. But when the last drone in her section fell, she was still standing. Her uniform was torn, her arm was bleeding. But she was alive, and she was not alone anymore. Across the station, something was happening. Coalition soldiers who had been ready to die were finding something new inside themselves. They watched the humans fight with impossible courage, and they found courage of their own. A Rilani engineer sealed a breach with his own body, holding the emergency bulkhead until it locked in place. A Bralith elder stood in front of a group of children and refused to move, even as Vorn claws cut into his flesh. A medical officer picked up a weapon for the first time in her life and used it to save her patients. Human spirit was contagious. In the command center, Oris watched the battle reports change. The retreat was slowing. In some sectors, they were actually pushing back. His people were fighting like he had never seen them fight before. Elder Comey stood beside him, his old eyes shining with tears. "They are not fighting like Rilani anymore," Comey said. "They are fighting like humans." "Is that possible?" Oris asked. "Can a species simply choose to change what they are?" "Perhaps not. But they can choose to be more than what they were." The battle continued. Hour after hour. The Vorn kept coming, and the defenders kept fighting. But slowly, terribly. The numbers were telling. The humans gathered in a maintenance corridor during a brief pause between waves. They were all wounded, they were all exhausted. But they were all still standing. Do-hyun looked at his team. He said nothing. He did not need to. They all knew the situation. Hansol spoke first. "We need to seal the auxiliary reactor access. If the Vorn reach it, they can destabilize the core and destroy the station." "The reactor is in Sector 12, Nari said. "That section is completely overrun. Anyone who goes in there is not coming out." "Someone has to go," Hana said. "If we lose the reactor, we lose everything." Silence fell. They all understood what this meant. Do-hyun started to speak. "I will..." "No," Hansol cut him off. His voice was calm and final. "You are the captain. The team needs you. The defenders need you." He picked up his massive weapon. "I am the obvious choice. Hansol, captain." The big man looked at Do-hyun with eyes that held no fear. No regret. Only certainty. "I was built for this. Let me do what I was built for." Nari stepped forward. "I should go. I know explosives. I can rig the reactor properly." You are too young," Hansol said gently. "You have too much left to do." "And you do not?" Hansol smiled. It was a strange expression on his hard face. "I have done enough. I have fought enough battles. Saved enough lives." He looked at each of his teammates in turn. "Let this be my last gift to you. Do-hyun was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion he rarely showed. Cho Han-sol. It has been an honor. The honor was mine, Captain. Han-sol turned and walked toward Sector 12. He did not look back. The others returned to their positions. The fighting continued. But something was different now. They fought harder. Faster. More desperately. They were fighting for time. Time that Han-sol was buying with his life. In Sector 12, Han-sol moved through a sea of Vorn. His weapon roared without stopping. Enemies fell in waves. He was wounded a dozen times, and he did not slow down. He reached the reactor control room. The Vorn were everywhere. He sealed the door behind him and began the overload sequence. His hands moved across the controls with surprising gentleness for such a large man. He had been a soldier his whole life. He had never been good at words or feelings. But he had always been good at this. Protecting people. Finishing the mission. The Vorn broke through the door. They poured into the room. Claws reaching for him. Han-sol smiled. He opened a communication channel. His voice was steady, almost peaceful. Sigma 9, this is Han-sol. Reactor overload in 10 seconds. The breach will be sealed. Do-hyun's voice came back immediately. Han-sol, we will remember you. Do not remember me. Remember what we fought for. The Vorn reached him. The reactor reached critical. Tell them, Han-sol said, his final words carrying across the station's communication system, that Earth sends its regards. The explosion was silent in space, but everyone on Sanctuary 7 felt it. A flash of light, a shudder through the hull, and then, on the sensors, 2 Vorn carriers vanished. The breach in Sector 12 was gone. In the maintenance corridor, the remaining 4 humans stood in silence for exactly 3 seconds. Then Do-hyun spoke. His voice was iron. He bought us time. Do not waste it. They turned and walked back toward the fight. Cho Han-sol was gone. But his sacrifice had given them a chance. And humans never wasted a chance. The Vorn Prime Alpha had made a decision. For 1,000 years, it had commanded its swarms from the safety of its flagship. It had never needed to join a battle personally. Its drones were extensions of its will. Its weapons against the galaxy. But these humans had broken something inside the Alpha. They had killed its children by the hundreds. They had turned prey species into fighters. They had destroyed 2 of its carriers with a single sacrifice. The Alpha needed to understand. It needed to see these creatures with its own eyes before it killed them. For the first time in centuries, the Prime Alpha left its ship. On Sanctuary 7, the defenders were failing. Han-sol's sacrifice had bought them time, but time was running out. The shields were gone. The outer sections were lost. The Vorn were pushing toward the station's core, where 12,000 civilians waited for death. Do-hyun and his remaining team fought in the main corridor leading to the core. They had created a wall of bodies and debris, a final defensive line that nothing could pass. They were out of ammunition. They were using captured Vorn weapons, knives, and their bare hands. Taemin had been hit twice. He kept fighting. Hana had a deep cut across her face that would leave a permanent scar. She kept fighting. Nari had used her last improvised explosive to collapse a side passage. She was now fighting with a Vorn blade in each hand, moving like a dancer through the enemy ranks. Do-hyun himself was a ruin. Both arms were injured. One eye was swollen shut. His ribs were cracked. Every breath a spike of pain. But he stood at the center of the line, killing everything that came close. The coalition soldiers fought beside them. Lieutenant Thessa was there. Her uniform soaked in blue blood that was not her own. Elder Comey stood near the back, directing the evacuation of wounded civilians. Commander Oris had picked up a weapon and joined the fight, his forearms firing in different directions. And then the Vorn stopped. The drones pulled back, creating a space in the corridor. Their clicking and hissing fell silent. For a moment, the only sound was the heavy breathing of the defenders. Something was coming. The Prime Alpha entered the corridor. It was massive. 3 times the size of a normal drone. Its ancient shell covered in marks and scars from 1,000 battles. Its eyes were not the empty voids of normal Vorn. They held intelligence, age, power, and hatred. The Alpha's voice echoed through the corridor, not through sound, but through vibration, through the very walls of the station. Which of you is the leader? Do-hyun stepped forward. He was barely standing. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds. But his eyes never left the Alpha. I am Captain Kim Do-hyun, and you are trespassing on a protected station. The Alpha studied him. Its ancient mind tried to understand how this small, broken creature could still stand, could still fight, could still speak with defiance instead of fear. You are dying, the Alpha said. Your body is failing. Why do you not surrender? Do-hyun laughed. It was a rough, painful sound, but it was genuine. Surrender? You clearly do not know humans. I have conquered hundreds of worlds. I have consumed billions of creatures. I have never been stopped. The Alpha moved closer, its massive form casting shadows across the corridor. What makes you think you can stop me now? Because we are not like anything you have conquered before. Do-hyun raised his weapon, a Vorn blade taken from a dead enemy. We are from Earth, and Earth does not raise children who know how to quit. The Alpha attacked. It was fast, faster than anything that size should be. Its claws swept toward Do-hyun with killing force. Do-hyun moved. He was slower than usual. His body was failing him. But he had been fighting his whole life. Fighting was the only thing he knew how to do. He dodged the first strike, blocked the second with his blade, rolled under the third and came up cutting. The Alpha roared as human-made steel bit into its ancient shell. It had not been wounded in battle for centuries. They fought. The Alpha was stronger. The Alpha was faster. The Alpha had lived for 1,000 years and killed billions of creatures. Do-hyun was human. He was broken and bleeding and running on nothing but will. But he refused to fall. He took wounds that should have killed him. He kept fighting. The Alpha tore his shoulder open. He switched hands. The Alpha broke his leg. He fought from his knees. The Alpha smashed him to the ground. He got back up. Stay down, the Alpha commanded. Accept your death. Do-hyun spat blood and smiled with red teeth. You first. Behind the Alpha, something moved. Nari had circled around during the fight. She was holding something in her hands. It was not an explosive. It was a piece of the station's power conduit, rigged to overload. She jammed it into the Alpha's back. The energy discharge was blinding. The Alpha screamed, its ancient body convulsing as electricity tore through its systems. It turned toward Nari, claws raised. Hana's shot took it in the eye. Taemin hit it from the other side, driving a blade into a joint in its shell. And Do-hyun, from the floor, drove his sword upward into the one weak point the Alpha had, the soft connection between its head and its body. The Vorn Prime Alpha fell. Around them, the drones stopped moving. Without the Alpha's controlling intelligence, they were just empty shells. They collapsed where they stood, lifeless, harmless. The battle was over. Hours later, the Coalition fleet arrived. They had come expecting to find a massacre. They found a miracle instead. Sanctuary 7 was damaged but standing. 12,000 civilians were alive. The Vorn fleet was in disarray, its surviving ships retreating without their leader. And in the main corridor, surrounded by the bodies of their enemies, 4 humans sat in exhausted silence. Taemin was treating everyone's wounds, including his own. Hana was cleaning her rifle, her movements slow and tired. Nari had fallen asleep against a wall, her young face finally peaceful. Do-hyun sat with his back against a barrier, staring at the empty space where Hansol should have been sitting. Commander Oris approached them slowly. His 4 arms hung at his sides. His face was a mixture of awe and grief. The Coalition fleet wants to speak with you, he said. They want to know how this happened. How 5 humans held a station against thousands of Vorn. Hi. Do-hyun did not look up. Tell them we did our job. You did more than that. You saved us. All of us. We lost one of our own. Cho Hansol. Oris nodded. His name will be remembered. I will make sure of it. Silence fell. The sounds of rescue operations echoed through the station. Medical ships were docking. Supplies were being unloaded. Survivors were being treated. Elder Comey walked through the corridor, stepping carefully over the bodies of fallen Vorn. He stopped in front of the humans and looked at each one in turn. "I have lived for 300 years, he said. "I have seen many species. I have studied many cultures. I thought I understood the galaxy." He shook his head slowly. "I did not understand anything. Until today." Do-hyun finally looked up. "What do you understand now?" "I understand why Deathworlds exist." Comey's old eyes were wet with tears. "The universe is cruel. It creates monsters like the Vorn, creatures that consume and destroy without mercy. But the universe is also fair. It creates something to fight those monsters." He looked at the humans with something like reverence. "It creates Deathworlders, creatures forged in fire and pain and endless struggle, creatures who look at the darkness and refuse to run. We are just human," Do-hyun said. "We are just doing what humans do." "Yes." Comey smiled. "And that is exactly why you terrify me. And exactly why I am grateful you exist." The news of Sanctuary 7 spread across the coalition. The story changed as it traveled, growing larger with each telling. By the end of the month, everyone knew the name of the 5 humans who had held an impossible line. The coalition formally invited humanity to join their military alliance. The invitation was accepted. The document was titled, "Integration of Deathworld Species, Terrans." At the bottom of the document, in the margin, someone had written a note that would become famous across the galaxy. They asked for reinforcements. They received Deathworlders. And the universe was never the same. Quote, "In a small ceremony on Earth, a memorial was built for Private Cho Hansel. His team was there. They stood in silence as his name was added to a wall of heroes who had given everything for others." Do-hyun spoke a few words. Simple words. Human words. "He was one of us. He died protecting people he never met. There is no better way to spend a life." Then they turned and walked away. There would be other battles, other stations, other people who needed help, because that was what humans did. They fought, they protected, they sacrificed, they were Deathworlders, and the galaxy was learning to be grateful.